Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining ARC's weekly fireside chat. This week, we will be speaking hopefully with our esteemed Assemblymember Reggie Jones-Sawyer of the 59th District and the person that's running for the 59th District against Reggie Jones-Sawyer, Efren Martinez. Both candidates were invited to join the show to discuss what are the ramifications of this election and what does it look like from both sides. So before we get into our discussion, I'd first like to always give a few instructions. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a ribbon with some icons. On one side, you have the Q&A box, and if you would like to ask myself or Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer questions, please feel free to add into the Q&A box or the chat box where you can communicate directly with both of us. As time permits, we will answer those questions live on the air. Again, thank you all for joining. And thank you, Assemblymember Reggie Jones-Sawyer. Great to see you.
Thank you.
I want to jump right into this. We're talking about the 59th District Assembly. And first and foremost, hopefully Efren will be joined shortly. If not, we'll continue to move forward. Take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer.
Hi, I'm Reggie Jones-Sawyer. I'm the Assembly member of the 59th Assembly District, which encompasses South LA, Florence Firestone, and Huntington Park and Walnut Park. For those of you who may be familiar with the 59th Assembly District, quick boundaries are 10 Freeway to the north, all the way down to Manchester to the south. East-west borders are basically Alameda, stretching west all the way to Western. What I like to say is the real South LA. I represent an area that is predominantly African-American, Latino. We're probably about 95% of those. In addition, I represent a district that is also 95% Democratic district. It's the most Democratic district in California. You look at whether it's the Senate, Assembly, Congress, it is the most heavily Democratic district in California. We have all the typical problems of a disadvantaged neighborhood. We're experiencing problems not only with education, but the coronavirus really has taken the lid off of all of the problems that we're having, we've always been having in South LA, whether it's the homeless, whether it's having underlying conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease, which is run prevalent through whether you're African American or Latino. It's one of the major killers in our community. And but most important, with Corona, we have to look at how we're going to deal with getting jobs and making sure that not only everyone has an opportunity to get a job, but those of us who want to be entrepreneurs, like street vendors in my community, that they're able to thrive, maybe then go into brick and mortar, get their own shop, and then move on and maybe start their own company. Look, you know, there are people, some of the best entrepreneurs I ever met in my life are from South Los Angeles and from my district. We just need to give them a leg up, whether it's free college education, which I've been advocating, but most important, I put bills moving forward to make the UC free, because I believe that back in 1960, then Governor Brown, Pat Brown, made college free for everyone. And between 1960 and 1980, we became one of the top 10 most economically sound, powerful, not only states in California, but we were rivaling countries. Countrywide, we were like the 8th largest economy in the world. And so I know it got to that by the fact that we're able to educate everyone in the district. And like I tell law enforcement all the time, the best way to stop a bullet is a job. Let me say that again. The best way to stop a bullet, the best way to prevent crime is a job. And so that's what I've been basically working on since I got elected in 2012, and working on what ARC's been working on, really trying to make sure that we close the school to prison pipeline on the front end and make sure people can get out with medical problems, whether it's trauma-informed care, making sure they get educated, making sure they learn a skill. Not everybody needs to go to college. but make sure they're able to thrive when they get out and not recidivate. And when I first got there, and I'll shut up, I'll just leave you with this. When I got there, I was put on public safety budget and I was made chair, and which means I was in charge of the budget for every prison in California and the prisons private prisons we had outside of California, their funding. And every private prison came into my office. I mean, every private prison. And they told me they needed 10,000 more prison beds over the next 10 years. And I said, well, how did you figure that out? What algorithm did you use? Because, my kids are really smart. They told me what algorithm means. I don't know what it means, but they told me. And so they said they can determine how many more prison beds by the number of kids that can't read at third grade level. Think about that. With 100% accuracy, they can determine how many more people will be in prison. Being from South LA, representing South LA, I said, why don't we educate every last one of them so we can determine how many more colleges and universities and community colleges we need to build over the next 10 years. Those private prisons never came back to my office to talk to me about anything. And since then, not only have we eliminated private prisons, but we were looking at 170,000 people incarcerated, more people incarcerated in California than anywhere else, than any other country. Think about what I just said. I'm not just saying we were incarcerating more people in California than any other state. We were incarcerating more people than any other country. That's how bad it was. Since I've been elected since 2012, we reduced that 170,000 down to below 100,000. We're in the 90,000 number, which means there are a lot of brothers and sisters that have been repatriated back into the community that are thriving and are doing well and won't come back to prison. That means we must be doing something right. Let me say it again. We must be doing something right. And crime has gone down. We've had some starts and stops, but that's because of COVID and some other things. But when you look at the longevity of what we've been doing, crime has gone down and people have stayed home. So that's been my main source of what I've been trying to do, because in the district, Riverside County area is where most of the people get paroled to. Second most, my district. That's why it's so important for me to make sure nobody recidivates or goes back to prison, because then they're going to come back and that crime will come over and recycle over and over and over again in South LA. And so that's why this conversation is so important, that you not only know what I've done, but what we as a community have done to make sure this doesn't continue onward. Thank you. That probably was a little too long, but thank you.
No, because literally that segues directly into some of what I want to ask you. So for instance, when I was incarcerated prior to 2012, I think the height of the prison population was 178,000 people in prison. And I read a report yesterday, I think it's 97,000 now.
Yes.
And we're slated to close a prison next year.
Correct.
And so like this is huge in terms of California currently has 35 prisons with a budget that's about, I think it's close to 16 billion just for our prisons. And so one of the things that I want to ask you was, do you believe that social science plays a role in rehabilitation, prison reform, and reducing the potential for return to prison by formerly incarcerated people?
Not only do I believe in the science, I believe in the science on both ends, not only as far as helping with cognitive behavior training, making sure we get trauma-informed care, not only that we do things to help with medically, if you're on drugs, medically try to get you off of that, or even just working to get you out of that criminality and so that you can come back to society. That's all about science. But what I also want to add, which I think will be great for everyone, that we do research and data on and make these programs accountable. We make them transparent and accountable. And that we put mechanisms to show, not me, the electorate, we should show the elected officials, but the public, what a great job we're doing. I'll give you a quick example. If we use the science to show that we spent over $300,000 a year on a juvenile in state juvenile facilities, which is now coming down to the county. Look, I went to USC. If you gave me $300,000 a year, not only could I pay for my tuition, I'd probably give me a Mercedes. I'd probably eat steak every day, live in a condo in Beverly Hills, and after 4 years, have a degree and never have to go back to prison, where it would cost the taxpayer an additional $80,000 a year to incarcerate me. We should use the science and the data to show how these reform programs have saved taxpayers hundreds, let me say that again, hundreds of millions of dollars by not filling these prisons like that archaic way we used to do back in the 90s when we were, 3 strikes, having you get prosecuted, you had to stay in jail for a indeterminate period of time. We need to get away from that. Look, we built prisons. We've been building up prisons for decades and decades. What Sam Lewis just mentioned about next year closing a prison, never, Never, has never been done in the history of correction. So that should tell you, and this is something supported by everybody in the public, we should be rejoicing that we're moving backwards, that we're turning the clock back to what actually works. And so not only do I believe that we need science to make sure no one recidivates, we need to use science to prove that it actually works and it saves taxpayers money. And I think at the end of the day, even our critics, even people who don't believe in it, even people who want to go back to lock them up and throw away the key, have got to admit it's a much better way. And I'll leave you with this too. What I've told the correctional officers, the prison guards, I'm not trying to eliminate your job. And in fact, I want to upgrade your job. I want to have you become teachers, social workers, and things like that. Those are individuals who want to be in crime. I want to create as much space for you to be there, and people who want to deal with that, let you deal with that. But if you want to be a teacher, if you want to teach somebody how to be a carpenter, electrician, plumber, if you want to work in social work to help them decriminalize themselves and get back in there, we should pay you more money because you went back and got your teaching degree, your sociology degree. We should pay you more money. We should honor you. And we should create a space with those empty prisons and turn them into education centers and schools, turn them into medical facilities, mental health facilities, or just turn them into shops where you can learn how to be a carpenter, electrician, or plumber. We should do that. And that's a win-win for everyone. I don't understand this notion of going back to locking them up and throwing away the key. It just doesn't, financially, it doesn't make any sense. And the science, let me say this for the last time, the science will prove that.
So thank you, Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer. I want to come back to that in just a minute, but first I just wanted to give Esteban a moment to introduce himself. And I had a question that I would like to pose to both of you on something that happened a year or two ago. But first, Esteban, welcome to the show and thank you for joining, and please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I apologize for being a little late. Was on a Prop 17 panel, but my name is Esteban Nunez, Director of Advocacy with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. Work very closely with Assemblymember Reggie Jones-Sawyer as all of our legislation goes through his committee. So honored to be here, of course, and honored to promote his district, which, as he said, a lot of our members and community parole to and live within. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Want to point out, Reggie, Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer, you said that crime had gone down, and literally I just pulled up a stat. So from 2009 to 2019, crime across the board has gone down in California, period. There, no category has it went up from 2009 to 2019. So just want our listeners to understand the impact that as we move to change from a model of punishment and retribution to one of healing and rehabilitation, these are the outcomes. And what I want to ask you about, Assemblymember, a year or two ago, you requested an evaluation of one of the programs in the correctional facilities that had not done well. I'm curious, what prompted you to do that? Because I think it was huge to point out, because you said accountability, make sure that these programs work. And when you pointed that out, I was shocked. And I was like, wow, I didn't even realize that after the evaluation was done. But what prompted you to call for that evaluation? I think it was for cognitive behavioral therapy, but I think it also has something to do with who was actually applying the tool.
So, and this is kind of the irony or the ironic part of my work. So I was in a meeting to talk about prisons with CCPOA, the correctional officers in Hawaii. And we were in a breakout group, and one of them said, I know you're into all of these programs, but do you know whether or not all of them work inside correctional facilities? And I said, of course they do. And he said, what data do you have to prove that? Why don't you do an audit? And I said, I believe in it. So guess what? I'll do the audit. If I'm going to believe in something, then we need to test it. And I went ahead and did this audit. Think about it, at the request of the correctional officers, so that I could prove to them that they worked, or if there were things that we needed to change or to fix or to amp up or to correct, or do we need to divert money to this program versus that program? Because I will tell you, look, I don't know if, there's a program, I'll give you an example. There's a program in where you train dogs to be companions and help service dogs in prison. And so I'm watching these inmates work back and forth with these animals, and I'm like, I don't know if does this work. And the then secretary pulled me to the side. Ralph Diaz said, see that man over there? Each year he has at least 3 to 5 different reports about him misbehaving or causing problems. He said it probably cost me, every time he causes a ruckus, he just used the word ruckus because old guy. He said it cost me $20,000 to $30,000 in just administrative costs to get him down and write the reports of what happened. Since we spent $10,000 on these service dogs, we haven't had any problems out of them. These service animals have taught him compassion and how to relate to other people in a non-violent way, a non-controversial way. And so really, these dogs are probably saving me $20,000 to $30,000 a year in administrative and having people come down and have to put down different disturbances. And so when we started looking at the cognitive behavior programs, that the audit that I requested, not only did it include addiction treatment, anger and trauma management, and job training, the audit showed that while programs exist in every facility, much more work really needs to be done to ensure incarcerated individuals are paired with the programs that they need. This is real important. A lot of times people wouldn't get paired with the programs that they need. Sometimes you're very good at working in the kitchen and you wouldn't be able to get to those programs because they were at the same time that your work schedule was during that. No, the most important thing is taking care of you and you inside, not what you do outside your body. And so we needed to correct that. I also already spoken to the new CDCR secretary about her desire to work on improving these programs because they need to be improved. Since my time in the legislature, cognitive behavior programs and career technical education, which is also important, is now available at all institutions. And I would ask you, if it's not, get back to me and let me know, because that was something I was promised. In our 2014 budget, we approved $2 million for continued education at community college for the incarcerated and the formerly incarcerated. and then 42 million to recidivism reduction funds. Some of that money even came back to the district. In the district, I have Los Angeles Trade Technical College. They have a very robust anti-recidivism program at Trade Tech that I'm really proud of because of the monies that we're able to get. And there's, since 2016, over 100 million added for reentry programs. So at the end of the day, we're starting to look at these programs, but we're also starting to put in a lot of money. And I'm a firm believer in being very careful with taxpayers' money. I'll give you an example. Beginning in 2009, the legislature has approved an incentive grant program that transfers savings to counties based on the number of probationers that did not return to state prison. Think about it, at $80,000 per year per person that comes back, that's what it costs. Right now, we've saved hundreds of millions of dollars that have been transferred down to the counties based on these savings. In 2017, it was $114 million that we saved. In 2018, 109 million. In 2019, 113 million in savings from people not recidivating. That's just counting what the state costs of imprisoning them. I could add on there that they're not paying sales taxes. Someone may be lucky, they might be paying property taxes. They're building up the economy. They're helping with small businesses in their neighborhood stay sufficient by buying from them, especially my district where I have a lot of street vending. That means that money is recirculating within our district and it's feeding into our economy. So this is, for me, this is a no-brainer. And when we start delving really into the CBT programs, we really need to make sure we talk about what our goals are and then see how close they come to it. If they don't meet it, we give them more money, try to meet those goals. If they still just don't have the capacity to do it, I'm for transferring that money to another organization that is thriving, that is able to do it, so these programs expand over time. And then I would love to one day look at these numbers of the money that we're saving because of Prop 4757 and all the work that we've done. I would love to one day see that it's $1.1 billion in savings that is going back to recidivism programs.
I think that, so thank you for that. And I think I just have an Esteban on it. And at ARC, we now have over 1,500 formerly incarcerated members. And I look at it in terms of savings. If I were to use me as an example, it would cost about $80,000 to keep me in every year or more. As I'm getting older and I have high blood pressure and there's medication that has to be given to me by the state, et cetera, that costs money. With the programs that I was able to access and come home and not go back, including college. College was vitally important to me and able to be in the position that I'm in now. I'm a homeowner, I pay taxes. So that $80,000 is reversed and I'm literally paying that back in taxes plus in services and leadership, as is Esteban and so many others. And so that's the part I also want our listeners to understand. When we talk about decreasing recidivism, decreasing the people that are inside prisons, it comes back to us in a way where you're healing our communities, you're making our communities whole, and we're able to pay into the tax base, and it costs less. It's literally less dollars out of our pocket. And I want to get into this. This is a question I know this is something that we've been working on for a while, and we were able to touch on it a little in the past few years. But how can technology help with reducing recidivism, both inside and out?
So the example I always use is, if you were a young person that went in, let's just say in the 70s, and now it's the year 2000, you didn't use a cell phone. A computer in your home, forget about a computer in your home, they didn't have computers. The technology has advanced so much that in part of our training, we got to retrain people on how to live in this world, especially with the technology where it is. Driving a car, you don't need a key. I know this sounds really simplistic, but when you come out and you're now driving an electric car or a hybrid, I'm pretty sure seeing that gas is $3 and something cents is probably, we're giving some people who paid a quarter and 10 cents a gallon a heart attack. How do you apply for a job? It's online. There's a lot of that's online. You don't, and so we've got to retrain people that when they come out, that maybe they're an artist, but we now got to teach them how to be computer artists. Disney hires people at $100,000 a year out of high school because they're great artists, but most important, they knew about how to do databases, how to work with the technology and the computers to create characters for movies and how to make them come to life. They have all the technical and they have the gift of drawing, but they now need to have the gift of how to do the technology. Anybody with a new car, some of us who used to fix our car in the backyard and pull out carburetors and engines and manifolds, you can't find your manifolds in a new car. You need a computer to be able to even diagnose it. So even the jobs that we thought were just that anybody could get, we had shop classes where when you got out, you had a job. Well, we can't have people come out and learn that automatically. So that's for people inside. And then on the front end, to ending the school to prison pipeline, I just heard that Toyota and Honda are begging, pleading for people to become computer maintenance technicians, that basically people who fix your car, because they need somebody to be able to diagnose it. And then you got to pull all this stuff out, which is computerized, out of the car. So on the front end, we're not teaching shops where you learn how to fix a car like in the old days. It is much more, you have to be much more technologically savvy now. And so we've got to get our young people up to the computer standard, but also know that they can get underneath the car and fix it. And so everything that we have right now is permeated with technology. Even the simplest thing is we used to say just an auto mechanic. It's a computer auto mechanic as far as I'm concerned. And so and just about every job is changed dramatically.
If I can, just real quick.
Let me share one thing, just 1 second, Spot, and then because I know I don't want to hog all the time asking questions, but I just wanted to share something that we're working on at ARC in terms of technology in cars. And this is only a few staff members and a couple of our members are aware of this, but there's a person that's creating or has created a way to take and put battery engines or Tesla type batteries and engines into old style cars. And so when we first spoke, they were mainly Porsches. And he showed us, I was like, wow, that's nice. I said, but what about like a 62 a Mustang or a Impala? And so he went back and guess what? They're beginning in January, they'll probably launch. But literally, can you imagine a classic, a 57 Bel Air convertible going down a freeway with that's electric powered? It's the shell of a 1950s automobile that has been converted to a clean air automobile. And that's literally happening right now. And our members are actually being given first access to some of these jobs. So just wanted to share that, Esteban. I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask a few questions.
No, I thank you for sharing. I mean, that's really important. I mean, in talking about our economy evolving and just the job market evolving, one thing I think it's important to say is that Assemblymember, you've accomplished a lot and you've done a lot in bringing us closer to a system of equity. Can you talk about the coalition that you've built, that you've had to build to get these measures across the finish line? And then also just, as it stands right now in your district, the coalition that has really rallied behind you. I know we invited your opponent, but, want to get a sense for, or I want the listeners to get a sense for really just, the support that is behind you and just what the coalition looks like and the diversity within that coalition.
Yeah, thank you. So all these things that I'm talking about now, I thought I really shared with most of law enforcement, and they told me that they were ready for the renaissance of policing. And I admit a lot of that came from maybe some from the older ones, they were a little more open-minded. They could see that the voters wanted this change and these reform measures. But of course, there's always some that resist change and they push back. Obviously, one of them is correctional officers who spent close to $500,000, and then other police agencies spent another 250,000. So I have a group that basically, because I think I'm the symbol, and I never thought I would be the symbol of anything, but I think I represent the symbol of all of these changes to a lot of people who don't want to see things change. And so the people who have been working on this, whether it's ARC, whether it's the consumer attorneys, my own union, SEIU, ASME, the Teamsters, several unions and laborers and others who actually have members who are formerly incarcerated. They know the value of it, have been supporting me, and they've also, from recent numbers, they're getting close to like $500,000, and I have a feeling they're going to spend a whole lot more to make sure I come back. We've had calls to our advocates who are supporting candidates down here who share our reform measures. Some are very wealthy, some are billionaires who have also, we're going to send checks and give them support to my campaign, because I think they believe that we shouldn't stop anything. And what I've told my opponent and opponents who don't believe in what we're doing, that the most important thing you need to understand is that this movement cannot be stopped. I mean, La Opinion recently published a support letter from former speakers Fabian Munez and former mayor and speaker Antonio Villaraigosa, supporting me based on the work that I've done in this area. And so I have the entire Latino caucus that's on board, even though it's a predominantly Latino district. I have every Latino in South LA except for one that is supporting me. Obviously, the African American elected officials, all of the others are supporting. The mayor of Los Angeles, Kamala Harris has endorsed me. Bernie Sanders has endorsed me. You can pick someone, Secretary of State Padilla. I have very strong support. And I didn't realize this coalition of not only elected officials and community groups and activists, I didn't realize that they probably felt that I was under siege. And for those of you who don't know, when the correctional officers decided that they were going to come after me, they put a target on my face, a bullseye on my face, in an era where African Americans are being shot in the back, especially African American male. You don't do that if you're a law enforcement group. That's unconscionable. You should know better than anybody else what problems that could cause. And if you think that it doesn't matter, yesterday, these right-wing extremists, pro-police, don't wear a mask, Trumpers were arrested for plotting to kidnap and kill the governor of Michigan. How crazy is that? And so that's why I take someone putting crosshairs on me, because I have family, I have a grandson. I don't want them caught in the crosshairs. Look, I took this job, and I'll stand up, to whatever they want to come after me on. They don't know my bloodline. They don't know where I come from, but I worry about my family. They should not be hurt.
Can you touch a little bit about where you come from? Because I think it speaks to the diversity of your coalition. I mean, in a time right now where there's so much divisiveness, like you've been able to really unite and bring together people from all walks of life, people from all types of backgrounds, and people from all ethnicities, nationalities. And I think it really speaks to, how important it is right now that we all take a unified front moving forward in really dissembling the systemic racism that exists within our systems.
And that may be why some people disapprove of what I've been doing, because it is collaborative. It is about bringing people to the table. It is about, look, I brought law enforcement to the table, and had serious discussions with them about what do they want. What are their suggestions to make a bill better, or how can we move forward? I'm not close to that. Individuals that are considered moderate, they're not progressive or liberal, but they're in the middle, but they're not conservative. They call themselves moderates. I've been very fortunate in being able to get them to vote for a lot of these bills that they would normally vote for. And obviously most of them are not African American Latino, but they've come on board because I've listened to them. I heard their concerns. We make a few tweaks, but we get the bill done. For me, it's better to get 99% of the bill than trying to get 100 and watch it die. And we've seen that, and Esteban and Sam will tell you, we've seen really good bills die because we couldn't come to a compromise. And so I want to go back because there's some work we need to complete and finish, like police accountability and making sure they can't go from department to department after they violated some of the civil rights or killed someone, but they're able to go to another department because there's not enough checks and balances. We need to continue to reform the system so that we get rid of systemic racism, because at the core of all of this, and as Esteban will tell you, my uncle was when the Little Rock Nine, when the 9 kids immigrated to Central High School in 1957, and he was beaten and he was kicked. He was left for dead in a bathroom, urinated on, and because of him trying to get into an all-white high school, think about what I'm saying. It was an all-white high school where African Americans, Latinos couldn't go to an all-white high school because of his sacrifices, because they had to send the 101st Airborne to escort him to class every day. Look, we got people in South LA that have gangs that don't have the 101st Airborne bring him to class every day. That's how contentious that was. But because of their sacrifices, because of their pain, I was able to go to Harvard and to USC. If they paved the way. So what I think that's why I'm getting to. I feel this is an obligation that I have to give back, that I have to fight for the downtrodden, the poor, and people who are put into that prison plantation. I've got to fight for them because there's others who aren't strangers. These are my family members that sacrificed everything, and so that's how I'm able to build a coalition, because my mother taught me not to have any prejudice. I mean, I could be an angry Black man for all the stories I heard that my uncle went through, but they worked really hard to make sure I was fair to everyone. And I think that's what, as we're going forward, you need to have somebody that's able to have people get rid of their preconceived notions and get rid of that pain, because everybody's experiencing pain. And I know on this call may not sound the right thing to say, but I will tell you, there are some good police officers that are in pain because the bad ones, the really bad ones, are giving them a really bad name. Just like we know in our community, if you're African American Latino, if a gang member does something really bad, we all get painted as gang members. We all get painted as murderers and criminals. At least that's what that president's been trying to say. And so I look at myself as probably the only person that has the chops to bring every side together so we can get things done.
I wanted to touch on that because I saw the ad by the CCPOA where they put a bullseye on you. And it troubled me, but it troubled me even more because of a past experience you and I and the head of the CCPOA and others experienced together when we went to Norway. Mm-hmm. And so just want to quickly describe for the audience that are listening, we went to Norway and we found correctional officers that saw themselves as mentors, that were happy, that literally when they retired, they lived for many years after their retirements from being correctional officers. And they have a low recidivism rate in Norway. I believe their recidivism rate is below 25%. And so when we went there, I remember the first day we were there and the Norwegian correctional officers explained how they did things. I remember the CCPOA saying, no, we can't do it that way. And the second day, it was kind of like, well, maybe. And then the third day was, we need this. And the reason why is because the way they work in Norway is they figured out a way to be able to do corrections where it creates safety for everyone, the staff that are inside as well as the people that are in custody. But it does something else that many people don't realize. So correctional officers have a whole litany of issues that they deal with from their jobs. Alcohol, high suicide rates. They don't live long after retiring. And part of that has been attributed to their mental health and how corrections has been functioning in the United States and specifically in California. And I remember before we left, we had this brainstorming session, and you and other electeds and the leaders of the CCPOA said, we have to take this model and figure out how to bring it to California, not just for the sake of people that were in custody, but for the people that are also working in the prisons. And so when I saw this video, I was like, wait a minute, we were here together and we wanted to do this in a united way to help everyone. And then they put a bullseye on you, and I'm like, wait a minute, was that a dream? But just wanted to touch on that because I remember leaving there and thinking to myself, it might take 10 years, but everyone's on board. And now we're at this juncture, and I just couldn't comprehend when we understand the problems that are manifesting themselves inside of the correctional facilities. I would assume that the CCPOA would see you as an ally, but they obviously don't for some reason. Would you like to touch on that, just on our experience and how it's, just to attack that I saw?
So the reason we all went to Norway, it was set up by many of our criminal justice partners who paid for all of us to go there. And maybe even CCPOA also helped with flying us out, putting us in hotels and making sure we met with the correctional individuals. And Sam is right. When we first got there, one of the places we went was a German concentration camp. And they said during the occupation of Norway, all of the politicians were put in German concentration camps. And they experienced what it was like to be in probably one of the worst situations you can be is in a German concentration camp. When they were freed and got out, they resumed their position in there. In fact, in this picture he's showing you, I'm standing in front of the president of CCPOA.
Yeah.
So it appeared as if we were working. It appeared so when they got out, they just wanted to change the entire prison system. They reduced the amount of time you can be in prison to like 20 years. Whether you murdered, raped, killed, it was 25 years, and you were going to get out, and you were going to be a better person when you got out. So then they started putting things into programs so people can get out and live a proper life. And one of the things that they said about elected officials and politicians is that for them to be able to correctly understand police reform or criminal justice reform is that every elected official should spend some time in prison. Not go visit for a couple of hours. No, spend the night being there for weeks, maybe a month at a time, so you truly understand what it's like to be incarcerated. Once you have that, once you know that, you know what to do when you get out. And obviously, I'm on the screen I'm looking at. I'm sandwiched in between Sam and Esteban, who actually know. That's why they're two of my biggest advisors, my main trusted advisors. So I don't go off the rails and do something really stupid and dumb. That I seek their advice, and I wish law enforcement would be proactive and seek the advice of formerly incarcerated and people like Sam and Esteban, and then take it in and really understand it and absorb it, because I think you two might be the best advisors to law enforcement on how to make this renaissance happen. And so I think that's what Norway does. They marry the two. They're not afraid. And CCPOA right now has a problem with the number of suicides. There's a large number of suicides with CCPOA, and that should be their main concern. That their members aren't getting enough treatment. So if you got 7 or 10 individuals committing suicide a year, there's a problem. Because for each one that's committing suicide, there might be 10, 20, 30 that are thinking about it, that are under the same pressure. This macho thing of not going to go get mental health It's got to go away. Or it exhibits itself out as they're trying to work with people who are incarcerated. And that's when maybe some of the brutality comes, because all of this just vents up, and next thing you don't know why they're being mean to you. You just know they're being mean to you, and they're doing some things that are borderline criminal. And it may be because there's some pent up stuff going on that if they were to go sit with a counselor, or if they were to just be able to have time off, if they didn't drink and try to suppress it with alcohol and drugs, maybe we would be able to have a better way of doing things. But right now, the message we're getting is they want to go back to the kind of that macho, lock them up and throw away feet. And I believe it's not only is it not good for people incarcerated, if we did some studies, back to your saying, Sam, about the technology, if we were to do some studies on the number of prison guards that have serious mental health problems, that number could be high, which means then we should put in more money to help them with that. So I could get a multiplier effect. If they're happy with the job, stress level goes down, then they'll be able to treat other people. Their marriages will be saved. They'll be able to deal with their kids, family members. That also has a multiplier effect on everybody. And that's what we learned in Norway. You got to get like an AA degree. You can't go into the prison until after what, 2 years of training, and it's less than a year right now for our correctional officer. You almost get a degree by going through. So and they teach you cognitive behavior, all the things that we're trying to implement now. They teach you that right now in Norway before you even guard anyone.
Amazing. Thank you, Assemblymember. We have a few minutes left. Esteban, I'd like to give you an opportunity to present the last question before we close out.
Yeah, it's a two-part question, but one, and you said it earlier, your district is comprised of primarily those within the Latinx community. So during COVID, when budgets have been strained, if you could just talk a little bit about what you've done to help the essential workers in your district and help those within the Latinx community. And then two, because we did invite the person also running against you, how can you tell our viewers what differentiates the two of you, from in your opinion?
Okay, on what differentiates us, that is easy, and I think the most compelling is go to my website, go see what I've done, not what I'm going to do, but what I've done in the district. It's quite a bit, and I'm proud of it. And when I say I'm going to make college free, you will see that I had a bill to make college free. You know what I'm saying? You as I'm moving forward, if I say I'm going to help close more prisons, you will see I've closed one now, and you can see where it connects. Where you can see where I got COVID money and resources in the district, you can see the bill or where the budget asked where it's now happening. So you won't be able to see, you won't be able to see a list of accomplishments, more or less. You may see some promises that I've already met or kept, and that I want to increase in the future. And so that, for me, that's the major thing when you talk about character. In addition, they've done some hit pieces on me, but I don't have Republican trying to help me get elected, because I don't have people who don't believe in what we believe in trying to get me elected. I don't have people that are Democrats in name only trying to get me elected. I am, there was a piece he sent out, or CCPOA sent out, with Bernie Sanders on the front page, and on the back, it says, if you like Bernie, vote for my opponent. And he put his name. Bernie Sanders endorsed me, and he endorsed me in the primary. So I'm not going to mislead you. Anything you read, I can stand up for. When you look up in the corner, is either paid for by my campaign or the California Democratic Party, because I am the endorsed California Democratic Party candidate. So most of my mail also has that. So you know who I am, and just look at the bottom of your mail who live in my district. It will say Correctional Peace Officers Association. So who do you want to believe? The California Democratic Party or the correctional officers when you get their mail? So that separates us. And what was the, I'm sorry, what was the first question about what I've done? So if you again, you look at the website, I've been to every food distribution center in the district. I've given out masks to the essential workers in my district, because at the beginning there wasn't a whole lot of equipment for them. And that's not only masks, but the shield, gloves, and I personally handed them out. And I've also handed out masks to clinics. Look, when in my district, I really don't have any hospitals, none. All we have are clinics. So I stood up for clinics so they could get funding through this COVID, because a lot of them about to shut down. And there are more people that come to our clinics than anywhere else. And so I got the funding and the help to keep those clinics open so that people in our district who don't want to go to a hospital because they think they might get COVID, they can do telemedicine now. And then our clinics get reimbursed. And that probably has saved them from them shutting down right now. And so it's now gone to a point where, you know what, telemedicine may really work in Latino African American communities, especially with the elderly who are scared to death and are shut in. And they may just have some minor illnesses, and we can diagnose it over the phone, or we can call a paramedic and come get them, as opposed to them sitting in a waiting room for hours and hours at the hospital. So those are just a few things that I've done during this COVID time, making sure we're safe, and then I'm gonna continue that as you move forward.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember. We greatly appreciate your time here. Esteban, I'll give you a first shot. We're almost at time. Closing thoughts for our viewers right now today before we close out the show.
I'll just say it's been an honor to work with Assemblyman Reggie Jones-Sawyer. Every time I've ever put in a request when we've done day of advocacies up for ARC, he has always taken those meetings and sat in them personally. It's not like we sit in with staff. It's always been with the member. And I think that really speaks to the integrity and value that Assemblymember Reggie Jones-Sawyer sees within our community. So I always really, I'm very grateful for your leadership and everything that you do. A lot of things one thing that people don't know is, Assemblyman Reggie Jones-Sawyer really helped me get AB 2147 out of the assembly floor, and of course promoted it in his public safety hearing. And AB 2147 was the expungement bill for those who have been in fire camp programs. So really appreciate your leadership in everything that you do, and your continued hard work. And I will always be a supporter of yours.
Thank you so much, Esteban. Greatly appreciate you, Assemblymember. So just wanted before I give you a minute to close out. 2147, if you think right now, California, there are fires all over the state, and ARC has 30 formerly incarcerated firefighters that went through our VTC program that are on the fire line, literally right now, putting their lives on the line to save lives and properties. And when I talked to one of these guys, they said, this is a dream come true to be able to give back to my community in a way that's truly meaningful and heartfelt. So just want to say, again, thank you for that, Assemblymember. Thank you for pushing it, Esteban. And like, there's so much that you've done, but again, please go to his website. Assemblymember, a minute or two closing thoughts for our audience.
Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I come back, we need to do more on making sure on licenses that don't make any sense. Look, you risk your life on a fire line to help strangers that you don't know, and then you can't become a firefighter. You probably have more skills fighting fires for maybe 5 or 10 years that you've been incarcerated, and now you come out and we tell you can't be a firefighter. That is just insane. Just like, and probably many of you on this phone, there's probably some great people that know how to cut hair, would be great barbers, great entrepreneurs, being able to feed their family off of them. But we won't give them a license. What? I haven't heard of anybody killing anybody with barber shears. They're all safety, as far as I know. So what is the hangup behind not letting people who are formerly incarcerated be able to come by a barber? And so there's a lot of other technical real estate. We need to look at a lot of these certificates that they are refusing access to folk that are formerly incarcerated, that they might be great salesmen at. They might be great at doing whatever, but we need to find those impediments and then maybe open those doors. And that could provide a whole lot more job to a lot of people. And so that if you want to know what's going to happen, that I want to work on, that hopefully I get reelected, is I want to make, as John Lewis said, some good trouble. A whole lot of good trouble. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Assembly Member Jones-Sawyer. I also want to give you a shout out from a young man who's currently in DJJ that you met in juvenile hall. And I told him that we would have you on the show, and you had told him to write down an idea for a bill. And just wanted to point that out, like, that this kid is still going to school. He has not stopped. He's gotten in any trouble. Like he said, that was one of the points in his life where he saw somebody that grew up in the same area that he grew up in. I can do what he's doing. I can help my community. So just wanted to get a shout out. He's a juvenile, so I can't say his name, but you remember him when we were in the juvenile hall. So shout out to you from him. Thank you to our audience. If you haven't already, or if you have a ballot, please vote. Go to your polls and vote. If you don't go to the polls, mail your ballot in. Please make sure that you sign it correctly. Dot all the I's, cross all the T's, so that you can make sure that your voice is heard. Remember, your ballot is your voice. Literally everything that we want to change in our community, we have the power to do, but we have to first go to the ballot box and put people in office that will do the things we need them to do to make our communities safer, better, and more resourced. Again, thank you for joining us. And on that, for everyone that's watching, to our amazing panelists, thank you, stay safe, and God bless.